Thank you. Chief guest of the day, Dr. Bibhuti Bhusan Pattanaik, our Managing Committee member and Chairman CEO Forum, Mr. K. Harikumar, Executive Committee members, MC members, past presidents, members of KMA, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and a hearty welcome to KMA Lecture Series. This is the first CEO talk session, and congratulations to our chairman, Mr. Harikumar sir, for organizing the first talk with a brilliant personality, Dr. B.B. Pattanaik, on a topic, logistics and supply chain infrastructure, key for growth of trade and industry in Kerala. And thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation, and a hearty welcome to you, sir. Once again, I formally welcome each and every one of you present here. Thank you for your kind participation. Warehousing is an integral part of logistics and supply chain management system. For most of the common people, warehousing involves just storing of the products, while it involves inbound functions for storing and outbound functions of packing and shipping. The supply chain infrastructure consists of the assets and systems that drive the network of suppliers, manufacturers, and logistics functions. It includes the information and organizational structures that support the supply chain. Recent studies show that outright savings can be realized in improvements in the design of the supply chain infrastructure, such as in materials sourcing, manufacturing capabilities, and distribution systems. What is interesting is that as savings from such improvements seems obvious, many companies have yet to make an effort to examine their infrastructures. Instead, many executives focus on improving the multitude of operational processes that underlie supply chain functions. Many managers have not yet grasped that supply chains are not only about processes, but they are also about assets and structures, thus making logistics and supply chain infrastructure the key for the growth of trade and industry. To talk about this, we have our chief guest, Dr. B.B. Pattanaik. Mr. Pattanaik has been in public sector management for more than 40 years. His expertise is in the field of policy formation and implementation in food and agricultural sectors, with a focus on warehousing, logistics, and supply chain management. Thank you, sir, once again for joining us. To formally introduce the chief guest and to take the session forward, we have our CEO Forum Chair, Mr. K. Harikumar, Managing Director, Travancore Cochin Chemicals Limited and Malabar Cements Limited. Over to you, sir. Sir, kindly unmute. You are muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I have unmuted. First of all, thank you, President. And on my behalf, let me welcome Dr. Pattanaik, and we have a special guest in Mr. Dinesh Sarraf, who was the former CMD of ONGC and the former chair of Petroleum and Natural Gas Resources Regulatory Board, and the past presidents of KMA and dear friends. See, Dr. Pattanaik, probably he must have got himself introduced to you already, but he's a senior management professional. He has more than 40 years of experience in the public sector management, and especially in the food and agricultural sectors. He's a gold medalist in agriculture from Banaras Hindu University. And apart from his public sector stint, he was also working as the Joint Commissioner Storage and Research with the Government of India. And he was instrumental in making the national policy on handling, storage, and transportation of food grains in 2000 June. And if you travel outside Kerala, you can see a lot of silos where food grains are stored. And he was instrumental in even introducing silo as a method of storage for food grains. Dr. Pattanaik, he started his career in Central Warehousing Corporation. He retired as the managing director of Central Warehousing Corporation. But in between, he had a brief and successful stint as the CMD of National Seed Corporation, wherein he took up the production and distribution of quality seeds of various crops and hybrids. Basically, the government of India wanted to increase the seed replacement ratio, and he was instrumental in turning around a loss company to a profit-making company. After he completed his stint as the MD of Central Warehousing Corporation, he moved as a member and subsequently as the chairman of Warehousing Development Regulatory Authority, or WDRA, where he introduced the system of online registration of warehouses and the electronic NWR, negotiable warehouse receipts. And these have been very successful, and it has been going very well after Mr. Pattanaik introduced this. And simultaneously, he also had been in the board of Food Corporation of India. He was also in the board of Central Railside Warehouse Company Limited, National Multi-Commodity Exchange, Fertilizer Association, various seed corporation, various state warehousing corporations. He was also in the governing council of IEM Indore. And currently, after he completed his stint as WDRA chairman, currently he is the independent director on boards of very many companies, which includes, it's not limited to, but includes Prabhat Agri Biotech Limited, Hyderabad, Star Agri Warehousing and Collateral Management, Mumbai. Apart from this, he is also an independent external monitor appointed by Central Vigilance Commission on Bamar Lorry, which is a premium PSU under the Petroleum and Natural Gases Ministry. He is the IEM of Independent External Monitor of Heavy Engineering Corporation, Ranchi. He's an IEM of Indian Bureau of Mines, Nagpur. He was also an independent external person on the Membership and Settlement Guarantee Fund Committee of Multi Commodity Exchange Limited, which is a SEBI regulated entity. So, Dr. Pattanaik, your resume runs into pages. I have just taken out a brief extract so that you stand properly introduced to the people. And first of all, let me welcome you to this program. It's actually the first of our CEO session, wherein generally we have an introduction by a top CEO, either working or a former, wherein they get to, in fact, we get to interact with a former CEO so that the experience gets shared and people get exposed to various sectors in which they have been working. And coming to this topic, you know, the topic is logistics and supply chain infrastructure with special focus on Kerala. Though you are a Pattanaik, I would consider you to be more of a Keralaite because you have traveled extensively over Kerala and you know the names of places in Kerala more than any of us do. Because the way, the frequency, the fluency at which you quote even the remote places in Kerala, even it has surprised me also many a time. And we intend to take the discussion forward as a dialogue because it should not end up as a monologue. And we, as already said, we have audiences spanning across various spectrum. We have industry veterans. We have CEOs of various companies. We have people who are familiar with logistics and supply chain. And we also could have people who are not very familiar. We also expect some student members must have logged in. So, I mean, I would not want to start at a high pedestal because let us start from the basic because everybody gets an exposure to the area in which you are an expert so that we can start building the step by step. And for the benefit of audience, let us start with a basic thing like this. As you said, the subject is logistics and supply chain. How do you differentiate between logistics and supply chain? Are these processes same or are they different? Please, Dr. Pattanaik.
Thank you, Mr. Hari Kumar, my dear friend, for a very long introduction of mine. Thank you, Madam Nirmala, the President of Kerala Management Association, all the executive body members, invited guests. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I never knew that I'm the opening batsman in this series. You know, the CEO talk starts with me. But anyway, it's my pleasure and privilege to come and meet you people, though virtually, and to talk a little bit on subject which is very dear to my heart and on which I've spent, as Mr. Harikumar mentioned, close to 40 years in warehousing. Hari rightly mentioned, Kerala is very dear to my heart as well. I have been extensively traveling Kerala. I've been traveling Kerala perhaps from 1984-85 when I was positioned in Chennai. And those days, the central warehouses in Kerala were being looked after from Chennai region. So that had taken me. And then incidentally, I also got devoted to Lord Ayappa. And since 1985, I have been traveling to Sabarimala, bearing for last 2 years, thanks to this pandemic. So yes, as during my tenure in the Central Warehousing Corporation's MD, perhaps the maximum expansion of warehousing capacity in Kerala was there. Some people may say that then my minister in charge of food and public distribution was Professor Thomas, and perhaps to please him, and he was from Kochi, an MP from Kochi, Ernakulam. But that was beside the point because Kerala wanted more logistics and we created about it. That's my love and affection for Kerala and this beautiful country, God's own country. Answering Mr. Harikumar's question, whether the logistics and supply chain management, how we understand these, and whether they are one and the same or there is some differences. Many use logistics and supply chain management interchangeably. But unfortunately, they are not the same. There is some finer distinction between them. Logistics mainly focuses on movement and storage or warehousing of the goods in the supply chain. So it's a component or a critical component of the supply chain, but it's not the end of the supply chain. While on the other hand, the supply chain management is more comprehensive, covering coordination and integration between partners or the players in the supply chain. Those have a role in the network, including the vendors. The supply chain starts right from the vendors of the raw materials, to the manufacturing, to transportation, to packing, to delivery, to the end customer. And many times it also involves the after sales supply chain as well, supply the spare parts, etc. And sometimes even the reverse logistics. I can give you some classic example of reverse logistics from my own field where I handled the seed company. We have many seed companies. We supply seed to the dealer and distributor. Some quantity of seeds are sold in a very limited delivery period during sowing, within the window of rain, etc., etc. But if something is left over, sold, it is being brought back to the companies and kept till the next season, kept in proper condition. Again, proper warehousing and storage, maybe seeds will also be requiring conditions, air conditioned storage, etc. So reverse logistics. So supply chain is a whole system, right from the raw material to manufacturing, transportation, storage, distribution, etc. While logistics is only the movement or warehouse movement or handling and transportation and warehousing part. So this is a finer distinction about this. So if you say the supply chain logistics coordinate the storage and shipping of goods across the supply chain and brings the processes of raw materials continues to the manufacturing, distribution or delivery of the finished goods to the customer. When well executed with efficiency, the supply chain and logistics will reduce the cost, So ultimately, the main objective of an efficient supply chain management is the cost reduction. And that brings a competitive advantage to the companies. Now, the companies, manufacturing companies, they are operating in a highly competitive environment. Everyone wants to reduce the cost. There are certain things which are controllable. There are certain things which are uncontrollable. Companies consider the cost in the supply chain as partly controllable. So therefore, they want to bring in the efficiency in the supply chain to reduce the cost and therefore making the product marketing cost competitive. Now, we'll discuss subsequently what are the components of how the cost reduction takes place, how the policies are developing. Although ultimately we'll make it Kerala specific, but when my talk will be more general in nature and on a national policy framework that we'll be talking about. So as I said, ultimate objective is the reduction in the logistics cost, reduction in making the supply chain more efficient, and making the product available in right quantity, right time, and at right place to the customer. And what now we call is the end of it, the fulfillment. We all know the Amazons calls it their fulfillment centers. It's nothing but a high-end logistic infrastructure, which becomes the heart of their entire network, making the supplies to the customers. So this is a fine distinction. Supply chain is a wider one, and logistics, which includes transport and warehousing or storage, are some part in that chain. So that's I would like to place.
Thank you, Dr. Pattanaik. See, this logistics is said to account for almost 13% of GDP in India. So that shows that logistics is a very big constituent which drives the GDP. So can you tell us a little more on the logistics sector in India, how efficient it is, and what are the challenges?
An excellent question, Hari Kumar. I think in Indian context, I think the logistics started with our, the movement of goods of the army, the supplies, basically. But, simultaneously, India was, in the post-independence era, the storage and warehousing started mostly for the agriculture sector, the food grain sector. I'll just give you a little historical background of the logistics sector or the warehousing sector. It started with agriculture commodity. Those days we were from a hand-to-mouth situation. You can say ship-to-mouth, PL 480. Then, of course, post-independence, we brought Green Revolution. Substantial increase in the agricultural production took place in the northern India, Punjab, Haryana, with the high-yielding varieties of wheat, paddy, etc., etc. But that also required creation of infrastructure, creation of storage infrastructure in the production area, as well as logistic infrastructure to transport to the consuming areas. But in food grain, so therefore, the first policy intervention of the government, if I say, was with the enactment of Agriculture Produce Development and Warehousing Act in 1956. That brought the Central Warehousing Corporation in 1957 to establish warehouses, chain of warehouses across the country in the production areas and consuming areas. And I'm happy to say the CWC's, the first band of warehouse 1957, 7 warehouses included one warehouse in Kerala, that was in Calicut. And because Calicut was a trading hub of many commodities like copra, the spices, etc., etc. So that started, and chain of warehouses. Fortunately, today the CWC runs more than 450 warehouses, constituting around 14 million tons across the country. They not only store food grains, but they store a large number of commodities, including industrial goods, raw materials, finished goods, export, import goods, dutiable, customs dutiable goods, and all that. Simultaneously, a huge capacity was also created for food grains by FCI, Food Corporation of India. I'll subsequently tell about that. But the transport network was mostly over the railways. Subsequently, railway also privatized the rail transportation. Container transport. Today, the Container Corporation, which was created in 1989 for transportation of containers, import-export containers, is not the monopoly today. We have a large number, almost 20 private sector train operators. So the logistics sector has been bulbing. And today, the ports are also there. Large number of private ports have also come up. So the logistics, the port sector, the airport, today, I think we have got more than 30 international air cargo cargo points, more than 23 domestic air cargo points. Some are by Airport Authority of India, some are by private sector. So ports have evolved. Land Port Authority has also come up. From 2012 onwards, for the cross-border trade. So, for example, a huge quantity of cross-border trade takes place between India and Pakistan through the land route, which is, we know about Atari, Wagah and Atari on our side and Wagah on the other side. And so, for handling of the cargo, both import and export cargo at the land route. Similarly, between India and Bangladesh at Petra Port on the West Bengal. Similarly, at Agartala. Between Myanmar and India at a place called Moreh. So all these land port stations under the Land Port Authority of India, like Airport Authority, have come up. So development of the road sector, development of the railway network, dedicated freight corridors, and all eastern and western dedicated freight corridors, privatization of the ports, bringing efficiency, all has taken the logistics network infrastructure of the country to a greater level. We have still miles to do. So, and more infrastructure that will be created, more efficient way, good infrastructure, if it will be operated in an efficient way, will certainly reduce the logistics cost, as both Madam Nirmala and Hari mentioned about it, which is still high and not comparable to the international standard. So it's an evolving one. Governments, successive governments have done. I know there have been logistics, warehousing had been the focus of many governments in the past. And present government is also doing a great lot. I think as we take our discussion further, but that's the key. The government realizes the lack of good quality logistics infrastructure and lack of policy in development and running of those infrastructure to ultimately reduce the logistics cost.
So thank you, Dr. Pattanaik. You have been very forceful in saying that the logistics sector has really expanded in India. It has grown. I remember both of us together visited that Atari post in India-Pakistan border, and it was raining heavily and virtually we had to run for cover. I still remember that. But see, coming to the logistics, See, generally world over, the average logistic cost is around 8% of the sale. But in India, it still continues to be around 11% of the sale, which makes our product less competitive in the global market. How do we address it? See, the costs are very high. It could be because of very many reasons. So number one is we would like to know what are the reasons and what is being done by the government to bridge this gap so that the efficiency at which we'll be able to deliver, our competitiveness will improve further.
So, good point, Mr. Hari Kumar. I think logistics is receiving attention. Logistics sector is inviting and receiving a lot of investment. But we still have a complex problem. Still, the logistics cost is higher in comparison to many developed nations. Unfortunately, in India, it is a very complex situation when it comes to logistics sector because of involvement of large number of agencies. If I say roughly, more than 20 government agencies under different departments and ministries, more than 40 partnering government agencies, 37 export promotions councils dealing with more than 500 certifications and almost 10,000, more than 10,000 commodities. That's the involvement of agencies and partners in the logistics. When it comes to rail transportation, rail logistics, we have Ministry of Railways, a large number of PSU under the rail ministry, namely the Concord, the Rides, the dedicated freight corridors, the IRCONs, etc., etc. When you come to warehousing, you have FCI, the CWC, the State Warehousing Corporation, many private sector. When you come to air, it's Airport Authority of India, private air cargo operators, private airlines, ports, private ports, major ports in government, and it. So CIWTC in the inland water transportation. So what is the problem is lack of coordination and a lack of systematic and synergic development in this sector. That is, perhaps agencies are working in silos. There is no integrations, and therefore, due to the lack of integration and coordination, as you rightly said, the logistics cost, as some reports say in India, is around 13 to 14% of the GDP. Whereas some developed nations, where we call it logistic performance index, is as low as 9%. So government has plans, government is developing certain plans with a very ambitious target of reducing the logistics cost to around 9 to 10%, or maybe around 9% by 2030. So that means there will be stay to a 3 to 4% addition in the GDP to the GDP by just simply reducing the the logistics cost. That's how it is the plan, and there are many schemes. Perhaps we can discuss as we go further.
Thank you. But I was just reading, there was a study by McKinsey Global Institute which predicted that India's logistic industry is going to explode to almost around $320 billion by 2025. So that means that logistic industry is going to grow, and there are a lot of opportunities also for the people to get into the logistic business. And the government also doing their best to drive logistics. And the government, I was reading somewhere that the government has started that PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan and all that. Can you please throw some light into that so that people who want to get into logistics or people who want to expand into logistics will get an idea?
Actually, as I mentioned, Hari, logistics is getting attention from the government from the policy point of view. And a lot of investment is also coming both public sector as well as private sector, as well as foreign investment coming into logistic area. Today, the country, I must say that we have world-class logistics infrastructure at many, production areas, whether it's automobile in, around Pune or Sanand, etc., or any, you have many known companies which have gone into logistic verticals. Your Reliance is deeply into the logistics, not only for their own products in their group, but also providing logistics to a whole lot of customers. Mahindra is into logistics. These are few names, but today we have world-class logistics infrastructure. A lot of investment is coming. Some of the logistics infrastructure, particularly the warehousing or distribution parks, are getting what you can say greenfield development, greenfield projects. Somewhere, certain land is definitely a very critical component. But therefore, some of the existing infrastructure are being developed as brownfield projects for putting up good quality logistics infrastructure. So, you mentioned about PM Gati Shakti. Yes, this is perhaps the latest thrust of the government. It was announced last year in August 2021. PM Gati Shakti, they call it Gati Shakti National Master Plan, basically for logistics infrastructure. So aim is for providing multimodal connectivity infrastructure to various economic zones in an integrated fashion. So it's a transformative approach for economic growth and sustainable development. The PM Gati Shakti encompasses, the plan of the government says, it is driven by 7 engines. And these 7 engines are your railways, roads, waterways, ports, airports, mass transport, and logistics infrastructure. So, like logistics parks, etc., etc. So, and all these 7 engines to be supported in an integrated manner and with the complementary roles, they require energy, they require IT infrastructure, they require connectivity, they require communication, they require water and sewerage, etc. So they will all be supported by all these complementary roles of different agencies to put, world-class infrastructure for providing to the industry. Integration of all efforts of central government and state governments as well, in a public sector as well as private sector, in a coordinated manner to leading to creation of jobs and somewhere entrepreneurial opportunities also. Because there could be small ancillary efforts that would require. So all that, when it is coordinated and put up in a organized manner, it is expected to bring a transformation and seamless multimodal connectivity and logistics efficiency. So it will take into account the present infrastructure in the pipeline, and infrastructure which are projected. But I must say, the touchstone of the National Master Plan and the PM Gati Shakti will be the creation of world-class modern infrastructure and logistics synergy among different modes of transport and movement of both goods and people. It will increase the productivity, it will reduce the logistics cost, and accelerate the economic development. That's what is there. So the national plan also provides database, infrastructure, coordination of future projects, etc., And ultimately, with a common vision, proper planning, designing, etc., it will really be up in the days to come when we see the results of National Master Plan, which will, is being developed in a fast track, but to see its effect on the ground and to see the reduction in the logistics cost, perhaps, therefore the government has targeted by 2030 to reduce the logistics cost to around 9% of the. That's how it is. It's basically, as I said in summary, PM Gati Shakti is a holistic, coordinated, and organized effort of the government in bringing synergy between different agencies, bringing synergy in different partners who are engaged in development and running of those infrastructure. So, otherwise, today, as I said, people are all working in silos. We have Ministry of Roadways, which is responsible for Bharatmala, Ministry of Shipping and Transport for Sagarmala, etc. All this, if it is brought under one umbrella in a systematic and coordinated and synergistic manner, it will bring in efficiency in the logistics, and therefore it will reduce the logistics cost, and therefore the companies will be in a position to improve their productivity and competitiveness.
Thank you. Some time back, there was a write-up on the national logistic policy, which you were also talking about. So what are the ingredients and what stage are we now on implementing the policy?
Unfortunately, the national logistics policy, is under discussion for a couple of years, if I know. It's not yet finalized. Maybe we'll like to see, but it's still in a discussion stage, consultation. When a government brings out a policy, and policy as important and as critical like a logistics, which, as I said, involves multiple departments, multiple organizations, multiple governments, including states, etc. So obviously they need to consult all the stakeholders. And sometimes the consultation mechanism in our country is slightly longish. So, but I wish the logistics policy should come and it should see the light of the day sooner. But what the proposed policy, as it has come out in the public domain in the discussion stage, talks about logistics and logistics services and how it's to be, is again, national logistics policy will be in sync with the PM Gati Shakti, National Master Plan. So it will be in sync with both. So it will it will involve the carriage or transports of goods from the origin to the destination, either in unimode or in multimode, single mode or multimode. And it will involve various agencies dealing with storage, warehousing, handling, loading, unloading, and additional services, etc. So this will aim is to enhance the effectiveness of the logistics in the country, to reduce the logistics cost, and to make it technologically driven, technologically integrated, cost effective, sustainable, and developing an ecosystem which can accelerate an inclusive growth. So this is the key objective of the national logistic policy would be, as I said, integration, standardization of the assets of the processes, modernization of the assets, optimization of the assets and other resources. So these will be the key ingredients and key objectives. The objective of the policy also will be to reduce the cost to a comparable global level. As I mentioned, from 13 to 14% to around 9% in a time horizon of by 2030. So, and the policy also will endeavor to bring down what we call the logistics performance index of India. No, to tell you briefly about what this logistic performance index. Logistic performance index is the concept where World Bank evaluates the countries based on their logistics performance and ranks them. And how do they rank? They rank taking 6 components into account. One, the most important component, efficiency of customs and border management department, border management clearance. Second, the quality of trade and transportation infrastructure. Third, the ease of arranging competitively priced shipments of goods. Competence in quality of logistics services. Fifth, being ability of track and trace the consignments. And lastly, frequency with which the consignments reach the shipment at the destination as per their scheduled or expected delivery period. So taking these 6 components into account, World Bank ranks the countries in the call it logistics performance index. And in the last index that was available is of 2018. I have not come across the LPI beyond 2018. And 2018, unfortunately, India, among all the countries, ranked at 44 with a score of 3.18. Number 1 being Germany with a score of 4.2. Second, Sweden with 4.05. Third is Belgium, 4.04. Fifth is Japan with 4.03. USA is at 14th at 3.89. China is at 26th at 3.61. And India is at 44. But we, with all this, action plan, National Logistics Policy, PM Gati Shakti plan, etc. All these envisage that once that integrated approach, once efficiency is brought in, perhaps India can come within 25, rank 25 by 2030. So that's the ultimate objective of the National Logistics Policy. One, to bring down the logistic cost as a percentage of GDP from 13 to 14 to 9 to 10, and to bring in the efficiency and bring up the India's status in the logistics policy index, performance index, from present 44 in 2018 to within 25 by 25. So that's all the aims and objective of these actions of the government are in that direction.
Thank you. So people who are in the logistics business should be happy because there are a lot to catch up with an LPI of 44. So it's quite possible that McKinsey Global Institute's prediction of $320 billion business should stand to be true by 2025. So thank you, Dr. Pattanaik, for throwing the light into this. Now you were talking about, you were giving a macro picture. Now let us get into a micro picture. Let us get into the warehousing, which is your forte. And you were mentioning that warehousing as a critical component of the logistic and supply chain infrastructure. In Kerala also, wherever you travel, every vacant land is getting converted to a warehouse, either open or it is getting converted to a, what do you call it, makeshift warehousing. So can you at least throw some lights into the warehousing scenario in the country?
As I mentioned, Hari, the warehousing scenario particularly in the agri sector, predominantly in the public sector. The CWC around 11 million tons, the FCI, a large network of warehouses, around 12.7 million tons. We have the CWC's partner agency, that State Warehousing Corporation. There are 19 state warehousing corporations, including Kerala, which are around 44 million tons. Cooperative sector in India has a large network of warehouses, small warehouses of 100 tons, 200 tons, 300 tons, which is around 16 million tons. But private sector, in the last 2 decades, and most particularly in the last 1 decade, because of various incentives rolled out by the successive government, has come forward and invested heavily in creating warehousing infrastructure in the country. And today, because of those incentives and investment by the private sector, we have around 78 million tons of warehousing capacity in the private sector. So, well, if you look at the macro, around 166 million tons is available. And maybe bulk of it is for agri sector, but a sizable quantity, around 40%, is also catering to the need of the non-agri sector, the industrial sector, raw material, cement, steel, white goods. You have the LG, who has a manufacturing industry in Greater Noida, ships their fridge or televisions or microwaves to Kerala to supply during the Onam and all that. So a large number of network of warehouses has come up. Today, I must say, the India, those days have gone where you used to hear and listen to the stories of grain rotting in a open storage and all that. That's not the case because of heavy investment technique. And I think time is running, so I must come to the Kerala to an end. So to be little to touch upon the warehousing capacity available in Kerala, predominantly, as I said, the driver was the central warehousing company. First warehouse among the 7 warehouses in Kerala was on Calicut, as I said. We call it Kozhikode today. And so today, the CWC across Kerala operates around 12 centers with a capacity of 1.86 lakh tons. And its partner, the Kerala State Warehousing Corporations, have 54 centers with a network with a capacity of around 2.32 lakh tons. Cooperative sector at 221 locations. You have many cooperatives in Kerala doing different type of activities, and they have around 0.5 lakh tons. Private sector, in spite of all the challenges, difficulties of land, non-availability of land, etc., has around 6 lakh tons capacity in Kerala. So today, we have the warehousing capacity both in public sector, cooperative sector, private sector. Some warehousing may be in the private sector for their own captive goods, but some are available for public use, public storage. Is around 10 lakh tons. So, but as I said, bulk is of central warehousing company. CWC has, as I said, you can say, yes, they are supposed to be in major markets, big center, district headquarters, etc. So 12 numbers with around 1.8 lakh tons capacity is not small, it's a sizable chunk. So they have at Ertala, Ernakulam, Kakanar, Kakancheri, Kanjikode, Kannur, Kochi, Kunamthanam, Thrissur, Talasari, all these places they are there. They have plans to have another 3 centers in next by March 23 with a capacity of around 44,000 tons, which is around 3 lakh square feet. So every organization, the private sector also may be having their own plans, but certainly being the pioneer and leader in the warehousing, the CWC in Kerala is playing a leading role. It is also supplementing, assisting its state agency, the Kerala State Warehousing Corporation, in efficient management of, unfortunately, Kerala State Warehousing Corporation is not a profit-making company for whatever reasons. And therefore, they are not able to get any additional investment to do it. That role, perhaps that place is being taken by CWC, but a large number of private sector, in port sector, particularly for import-export trade, the container freight stations, etc. We have a large number of private container freight stations around Kochi. The airport has come in Kannur, the private sector airport, which is maybe tomorrow there must be an air cargo complex in Kannur, or maybe tomorrow it will come. And in fact, the CWC's warehouse in Kannur land was taken to develop it as a ICD, Inland Clearance Depot, particularly for the textile, factories around Kannur, etc. So this is a small, map of the warehousing or logistic footprint in Kerala, I must say.
So basically, you were talking about the scope and opportunities of warehousing in Kerala.
Yeah.
See, Kerala, as you know, is basically a consumer state wherein we get everything from outside.
Yeah.
So when everything comes from outside, naturally, there has to be a lot of scope for warehousing. So from food to vegetables to everything, for even white goods and anything and everything, we don't produce anything and everything comes from outside. So you think there are many more opportunities for warehousing in Kerala, or central warehousing and the state warehousing corporations are good enough to take care of the requirements?
No, sorry, they are not good enough to take care of the requirement. I'll just say by one figure. Today, the latest figure of capacity, the capacity utilization tells you whether you have an opportunity to grow. And the capacity utilization of the CWC today is 99%. It's a very happy situation for CWC because 99% of its capacity is utilized. But what does it indicate? That means there is huge demand in the market for somebody else to either CWC expand its capacity or private sector to come and put up infrastructure to cater to the growing business. We say the state agencies are not very efficient. Still then, the Kerala State Warehousing Corporation's capacity utilization in the other is 90%. What does it mean? That means there is still scope for somebody. The cake is so big, this pie is so big, there is somebody to come and put up a logistics infrastructure, warehousing infrastructure to supply cater to the growing market and growing customers, etc. Yes, it's not easy. There are challenges. And critical, most big challenge is the land. And as I said, e-commerce is putting up a huge opportunity for people to come and do it. White goods, buying power, people's buying power increasing, etc. So huge opportunities in Kerala. You have go to the Lulu Mall of Kerala, Kochi. You can, it's mind-boggling to see, maybe thousands of products in a large volume. It requires some logistics somewhere. It's a classic example of the consumption. The consumption increase is demanding investment in supply infrastructure. So therefore, it's not possible for CWC or SWC alone to do it. And I think private sector investment is desirable and critical because private sector is not only investment, but also they will bring in efficiency. All said and done. Today, we have the public sectors. There is some. So I would say it's big opportunity for the private sector to come and play a role in logistics infrastructure in the country and more particularly for the Kerala. But challenge, as I said, I think the biggest challenge is the land.
So thank you, Dr. Pattanaik. You were right because Kerala, the land is very costly. when the land is costly, probably we'll have to get into good practices of warehousing so that the return on investment gets maximized. See, for that, probably a smaller investor in Kerala may not be equipped to go for the best practices. So for the benefit of the audience, can you at least suggest who are the big warehousing companies in the country, so that probably whoever wants to have a tie-up or who wants to have a look up to that will be able to get into that. Which are the big warehousing companies and who all follow the best practices of warehousing?
Hari, you are very right. Particularly in context of Kerala, we have large, almost 29 to 30% of the land is on forest. And then there is another 5 to 7%, which is the wetlands, or there are coastal zone restriction, etc. So therefore, the availability of the land for the warehousing infrastructure is definitely a genuine concern. So therefore, what is required in Kerala is more of multi-storied warehouse, small, lesser space, more capacity, more of mechanized warehouse, where automated storage and retrieval system, etc. And that requires investment, sizable investment. So therefore, as you rightly said, smaller companies, perhaps it will be difficult for them. Yes, as I said, there are companies which are exclusively in the logistics domain, high-end logistics, like as I said, Mahindra Logistics, Reliance Logistics, etc., etc. But there are also warehousing companies who are hungry for investment. I can mention a couple of them in the agri space, and not only agri, they are also diversified to non-agri. One of the company which I am on the board as independent director is this Star Agri Warehousing and Collateral Management. They are hungry. They have got a lot of investment, private equity investment. The other one is, your National Collateral, NCMN, National Collateral. There are a Hyderabad-based company called Navjyoti, and there are many people who will be keen to come and partner with small, players, particularly, who has got land. Perhaps they can partner with somebody who will bring in investment and their warehousing infrastructure. There are people, as I said, in the private sector. In Indo-Arya is another one company. And there are many companies who are looking for opportunity to to spread geographically. And Kerala is an emerging market. Yes, sometimes people are, because of the huge labor cost and not, that's an issue. That's an issue. Labor is an issue. But still there is an emerging market and people are looking to, diversify and spread to state like Kerala and put up logistics infrastructure.
See, thank you. See, as you were talking about the challenges of the logistic and warehousing in Kerala, and are you aware or do you want the government of Kerala to do something more for the logistics sector or the warehousing sector in the state? Because KMA as an organization works in close association with the government, and we also give recommendations to the government. So as an expert in warehousing and the logistics sector, and as somebody who has seen Kerala from a close quarters, what exactly you would like the government of Kerala to extend support in improving the warehousing sector or logistics sector in the state?
Let me tell you, Mr. Harikumar, I must tell with a great deal of satisfaction that government of Kerala is one which has been very proactive in developing the infrastructure sector, the logistics sector. And many of us are aware of the role that has been played and is being played by the agency called KINFRA. The Kerala Industrial Infrastructure Development Act 1996 is perhaps one of the pioneering state in bringing out an act in 1996 with the aim of, what is that? Developing infrastructure and making it available to people, and basically land infrastructure. and developing infrastructure and attracting industrial growth. So today, if I must say, the biggest beneficiary of the infra scheme is the CWC. Most of our warehouses are developed in the infra land. Yes, they have been purchased at great cost. It's not free. It's not free. But government of Kerala has made this land acquisition easier by developing organizations like infra who pulls the land, make it develop, and hands it over to the agency who wants to put up an infrastructure. So today, and we are aware of many parks, your textile park and defense park, etc. being done. So, sorry, it will take a second because the electricity has gone up, but then the backup generator, I may be looking little dark. So Kinfra is one, and I do not know what is the land pool they have got now, or they must be actively working to develop Kinfra parks in different pockets. They right from Trivandrum, we have got a Kinfra park in, I think, textile park or something in Trivandrum, to right up to Kannanur and all these things. So if they must be sensitive, but if they can be more sensitized to make the land available, yes, as I said, the industry doesn't need charity. The industry will make it, but getting the land easy, particularly when it comes to the public sector, nobody wants to buy land from a private one. Whereas even if Kinfra has double or 3 times the cost, public agencies are happy. So, and they give the infrastructure properly developed with the electricity, the rail, road, water, sewerage, etc. So, if government of Kerala needs infrastructure more to come, quality infrastructure to come, I think they have the agency and they have the intention. If they can activate Kinfra a bit better, so that Mr. Harikumar, you are muted.
So thank you very much, Dr. Pattanaik, for a wonderful lecture. In fact, my chat box is getting flooded with thank you messages and messages which are talking very high about the lecture. So before we wind up, I'll take a few questions. I would request you to be brief so that we can finish on time. See, the first question is from Sri Chaco Joseph, wherein he has been talking about the government of India's efforts to improve logistics. When Kerala, we end up paying almost 250-300 rupees per apple, while the farmer in Kashmir gets only 50. So what can be done so that the farmer also benefits as well as the consumer in Kerala also benefits, so that we get apple at a lower rate and the Kashmiri farmer also gets a better rate?
So you see, one of the reasons why our logistics cost in case of perishables like apples is high is that they are to be transported. We call it cold chain. So it's not only developing a infrastructure at the procurement center, but also having the cold chain logistics and also the cold chain facilities at the end point. Many times the cold chain logistics is not integrated, and in many cases, kindly imagine if the reefer truck goes apple from Himachal Pradesh to Kerala, sometimes on the reverse, it does not have a reefer cargo. So many times but now with the concept like Ola, Uber, there are apps available which makes the reefer trucks also to get either a reefer cargo or a non-reefer cargo, general cargo. So the reefer container or reefer truck does not come empty. So that's once those things are, there is development of cold chain infrastructure at the consumer end, and networking of the cold chain logistics will definitely bring down the logistics cost. Maybe the apple in Kerala will be available 20-25% less. So that's integration development of coal infrastructure and efficiency in the running of this infrastructure will bring down the logistics cost.
Thank you. I will take two more questions. And one is, you were talking about the 7 ways in logistics. Can you tell something about the 7 rights in logistics? Because
what is that 7? I said, what do you call the 7 engines of logistics?
yeah,
That's basically the rail, road, waterways, airways, and multimodal transport. These are, and the warehousing, etc. You have ports, inland ports. Rail is one, air is one, air traffic, air transportation. Then ports, including ports, seaports, major, minor, land ports, then warehouses, inland waterways. These are the 7 growth drivers in logistics. I mean, you can say 7 verticals in the logistics infrastructure chain.
thank you, Doctor. And Mr. Sanil SK has 2 questions. I think one on cold chain you have already answered. In case you want to add on what is your view on shortage of cold chains, you can take it. Otherwise, one more question is there, that how far India has traveled in the intelligent warehouse by way of adopting suitable world-class technology.
The first question on the cold chain, yes, development taking place. There is a lot of incentive available from government under various schemes. We have got one scheme, particularly for agri perishables, like fruits and vegetables. You have got National Horticulture Mission. You have also schemes of the Food Processing Ministry. You have scheme of the APIDA, which gives up to 50% subsidy in development of cold chain infrastructure. Cold chain infrastructure means controlled atmosphere stores, CS stores. All doesn't require cold store. Normally, we confuse cold chain logistics with cold store. Cold store is basically for potato, which is a high humidity and low level of temperature. But for fruits and vegetables, mostly, they need cold chain, cold controlled atmosphere, means low temperature and low humidity. And schemes are available which gives financial incentive. And incentive is also available in cold chain logistics, like reefer transport, reefer containers, reefer trucks. So people should make use of those schemes available, because that brings down the capital investment substantially and make the ROI better, the break-even point better. The second one is the intelligent warehouse. I think India has got a long way to go. It is starting. As I said, today, all these warehouses being put up by professional and sophisticated logistics company like Reliance, Mahindra, etc., or the Amazon and all that, are intelligent warehouses with automated, with tracking and tracing system, retrieval system, RFID tags on the packets, barcoded RFID tag, container transport is tracked through GPS, etc. So, but we have a long way to go. Beginning has been made, and as the more and more investment will come in quality logistics infrastructure, we'll see more of intelligent warehouses and logistics infrastructure.
Thank you, Dr. Pattanaik. Before I hand over the podium to the president, let me, on my personal behalf, thank you very much for a wonderful lecture. In fact, it has been very thought-provoking, and Kerala, which is basically into the logistic business, people would, all the people who have logged in will entirely be thrilled about the opportunities which is going to be opened up for the logistics sector. I also take this opportunity to thank Mr. Dinesh Sarraf, who was here right through, the former CMD of ONGC. And I would now hand over the, the stage to the president. Thank you, President. And thank you, Dr. Pattanaik, once again.
Thank you, my dear friend Harikumar.
Thank you, sir. Well said, Mr. Harikumar, sir. And thank you for an informative and highly enlightening session. Very interesting to listen to two brilliant persons talking about the topic. And the very first sentence, what Sir Pattanaik said, is Kerala is very dear to you, and that itself, we are very happy to listen to that. And Mr. Harikumar started with a very basic question like how do we differentiate logistics supply chain, and yes, you said that not the same and explained, and logic sectors in India mentioned about 57 Kerala's first warehousing in Calicut, and explained many more warehousing hubs like FCI lots and lot of information, spoke about 30 international cargo points, and then logistics cost is higher, and that also you have explained, and McKinsey's prediction, Harikumar sir was asking, and then policy matters, what not, lots and lots that spoken about the 7 engines that even the audience were asking about: roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways, logistic infrastructure. And I also remember that while presenting the Union Budget 22-23, Parliament Union Minister of Finance, Corporation and Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharam, said all 7 engines will pull forward the economy in unison. These engines are supported by the complementary roles in energy, transmission, IT, communications, bulk water, sewage, and social infrastructure. She said finally the approach is powered by clean energy and the Sabka Prayas, the efforts of the central government, the state government, and the private sector together, leading to a huge job and entrepreneurial opportunities for all, especially youth. This is what she said, and spoke about policy implementation, everything, micro, macro level picture, everything has been given, and challenges. The Kerala challenges land, you said, and then there is an opportunity of e-commerce. It is very interesting and highly informative. Thank you very much, sir. Nothing more to ask. Thank you so very much for your kind presence and the pearls of wisdom. Thank you very much. And with this, there is a few announcements for this coming programs. 28th July 2022, Leaders Insight session by Dr. Shanila Laiju, Group Chief Executive Officer of Medcare Hospital and Medical Center in UAE. 4th August, inauguration of CSR Forum, Chairman Mr. Anil Verma, or MC member. Speaker is Dr. Love Mudra Priyadarshini, Aditya Brilla Group General Manager, CSR Community Relations. 25th, we have KMA Digital Summit. Speakers are Mr. Shankaran Venkataramani, Executive Director at KPMG, Head of Business Excellence Practices, Mr. Davis KK, Senior Director HR and Oracle India Private Limited, Mr. Robin Tommy, TCS, Rapid Innovation Strategy, and Dr. Srijit Srinivasan, Global Director of Continuous Improvement of Schneider Electric, Mr. Sajis Shivadandan, Managing Director and Business Head, Google Pay and Next Billion User Initiative Asia Pacific at Google, Mr. Vishal Raman T, Head 14 Nets Business India in India, SAARC and Southeast Asia. And 26th, we have SYMP. I'm an All India Management Association in collaboration with Kerala Management Association is organizing online version of its flagship event, Shaping Young Minds program, 26th and 10 a.m. onwards. Kindly register. And then with this, I'm requesting or inviting our Honorary Secretary, Mr. Algiers Khalid, to propose word of thanks.
President Nirmala Lily, our invited speaker of the day for this year's first CEO Talk Lecture Series, Dr. B.B. Pattanaik, former Chairman of Warehousing Development and Regulatory Authority, Chairman of KMA CEO Forum and Managing Committee Member K. Harikumar, MD of Travancore Cochin Chemicals Limited and Malabar Cements, galaxy of past presidents of KMA, Managing Committee and KMA members. Indeed, a great start for this year's edition of CEO Talk Lecture Series with a topic that is in vogue in any management forum these days: It was great to have the doyen of the warehousing and logistic industry in our country for a conversation in the inaugural session of the CEO Talk Lecture Series. Logistic and supply chain management is the in thing in management education in any B school anywhere in the world. Just like it was marketing when I did my business management nearly 4 decades back in mid-80s. It was great to refresh the basic difference between logistic and supply chain, from logistic covering movement and storage of goods and supply chain to be more comprehensive. You so nicely explained the importance of cost factor in supply chain to be competitive and efficient, and for any products to be available at the right quantity, at the right time, and the right place. Thanks for explaining how logistics plays an important role for our products to be competitive globally, and hence how large corporates are making huge investments in good quality infrastructure as greenfield projects. It was also an eye-opener and thought-provoking to know that for supply chain to be efficient, it must ensure synergy in the entire gamut of transport: rail, road, air, water, and even pipeline. Besides, cover all stakeholders, not only in multimodal transport, but also warehousing and even IT sector. Heartening to know government is trying their best to encourage investment in this industry. Equally heartening to know that Kerala too is catching up and CWC is playing an important role, and a lot more opportunities are there in private sector to service the huge demand for the same. Indeed, very interesting and fascinating. I'm sure everyone thoroughly enjoyed the session. Thank you, Dr. Bibhuti Bhusan Pattanaik, for sparing your valuable time to be here today at KMA, for sharing your thoughts on how logistic and supply chain infrastructure is a key for growth of much needed trade and industry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Nirmala, Khalid Saab, and my dear Hari Kumar and the KMA for inviting me and giving me a platform to talk of forum. Thank you so much.
As President Nirmala Lily mentioned in her introductory remarks, KMA CEO Talk Series is yet another initiative that members look forward to every year, to listen to accomplished CEOs in different spheres of life. Thank you, Madam, for setting the tone and finally wrapping it up so well. Today's session is the latest under the able leadership of KMA CEO Forum Chair and Managing Committee Member, Mr. K. Harikumar. Thank you, sir, for selecting the topic, introducing the speaker, and warmly welcoming everyone. Sir, you so nicely engaged the speaker in conversation and extracted the maximum knowledge from the speaker for the benefit of all participants. Thank you, Harikumar, sir. Thanks to all the past presidents, Managing Committee, and KMA members for attending today's session. I would also like to place on record and thank the KMA Secretariat team led by our Executive Director, Lieutenant Jojo Jacob, and his team members, Prijit, Sandra, and Rexon, Ajmal too. Thank you all. You all doing a wonderful job. Also, thanks to our program sponsors, Medivision and Varma Homes. They both play a very important role in success of all programs of KMA. Before I conclude, I request our Secretary team member, Prijit, to please share the specially curated digital version of the memento for the speaker. Sir, this is an online virtual version. The physical version will reach you soon by courier. To remember your talk today at KMA and cherish it for lifelong.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, one and all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorary Secretary, Mr. Aljaz Khalid. And with this, I adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hari sir.
Thank you.
Great start.